Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about advertising principles. And for those of you who have dialed into a ad writing training session before, this is going to be slightly different. We're going to wrap up with some of that ad writing techniques right at the very end, but today we're going to concentrate on the four main concepts. But before we jump into things, I wanted to introduce myself for those of you who haven't met me before. My name is Narelle Stefanac. I'm the National Client Training Manager at Seek. Now, I've been with Seek for 11 years, so throw anything you have at me. If you've decided that talent sourcing is best executed through a job ad, and that's going to be your talent sourcing strategy, we need to make sure that you're going to be able to do it really efficiently, really effectively, fast, okay, because it takes time. And I don't know how many of you jumped out of bed this morning, punching your fist in the air, going, yeah, I can't wait to write a job ad today. Okay, I certainly didn't, and I get paid to do this job. So look, we're going to basically break apart the whole idea of advertising, give you some tools at the very end that you can use so that you can quickly identify what are you doing right, okay, the things that are going to work in today's environment, because the marketplace has moved quite considerably in the last 5 years. So are you up to speed with the latest talent sourcing techniques when it comes to job ad writing? And then give you the ways to be able to identify those bits that you need to work on. Because ultimately, if you can do it really efficiently and get the job done, but do it very effectively so that candidates can actually engage with you and want to read your ads, want to stay connected to you as a brand, really understand what the opportunity looks like so they're compelled to want to apply for a role. That's really what we're aiming for. So my background, I've been with Seek for a while, but before that I worked in the recruitment industry. So I've had lots of opportunities to recruit across industrial, commercial, temporary, permanent roles. So we'll go through the whole gamut. A lot of what we'll talk to is probably more skewed towards permanent roles. So if you are in the temporary space and you are just constantly generating temporary pulls, please flag that with me, because I'll make sure that we send you something additional, which is just a one-pager on how to actually access and really connect with those temporary candidates. It takes a lot of the same principles, but ultimately it wraps it all up in a nice little one-pager for you, so you know as a really good sort of guide, what does a good job ad actually look like. And we've had, just someone say that they can't hear me. And we can see everything here, but not here. My audio is coming up fine on the screen. If anyone else can't hear me, well, I guess you won't hear me, will you? So I might send a message out. If you can hear me, can you just say, yeah, I can hear you? Just want to make sure that everyone can hear me all good. Yeah, okay, so I'll just let Caroline know that I think it's just related to her microphone. Just you, Caroline. There we go. So, oh, good. Okay, always technology, that's something that can always go wrong with different people. And Mickey suggested that she looks after temporary roles. So, yep, no worries, Mickey. I'll come back to you at the end of the session, either today or maybe even tomorrow, just depending on time. But we'll definitely do that for you. All right. And yeah, Rachel dialed into my previous session and she said deja vu. There was one person that couldn't hear me in the previous one either. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're really taking this masterclass series and breaking it apart into three main components. So over the last 2 months, I've been traveling across Australia and New Zealand, and I've been delivering these live in most of the capital cities. And we break it into three main parts, spend half a day sort of going through all of this content. We're serving these up as webcasts so that you guys can play them back whenever you want, cut out the bits that you like, or give you all the notes. So what you're going to have today is a recording of today's session, but also a link to download, and I'll show you how to access that in a minute, but we'll also send it through to you most likely tomorrow, just so that if you've missed it, if you have to leave a bit early, if there's anyone else in your team that you think will value this, then you can give them the links and they can just sort of go through it at pace. Now, there's three main components when you want to execute a really powerful talent sourcing strategy. The first component that we covered this morning was becoming a subject matter expert. Now, that really helps you identify which sourcing strategy is going to work best, if it's job advertising, which we're going to cover now, or if it's talent search, or a combination of the two. So what you can do is, if you missed that session and you want to get your hands on it, please let me know. I'll make sure we go back to it. And we've had a few more people say, yep, they definitely want the temp stuff, so that's great. Fantastic. I'll make sure I get that for all of you. And yeah, it looks like Caroline's still having a few little issues, but that's fine. We'll make sure we take that offline for her. Okay, fantastic. Looks like you guys have found the question box, which is perfect. I'm about to give you instructions on that. But today we're going to really drill in and focus on these advertising principles. Okay, how do we know what the latest trends are, what we should be focusing on, how we should sort of move the dial on what we've traditionally done, because candidates are a lot more sophisticated today than what they have been historically. They also treat online as a serious medium. They want lots of detail, but they couldn't be bothered reading it. Right, so how do we get around that? How do we help candidates navigate their process through us? How do we get engagement? So we're going to really break it apart for you. Now, in terms of questions, just type them as we go. I'll pause as much as I possibly can. This is a pretty full-on session. It will take me an hour to get through this. So if I'm getting caught up on questions, I'll park them and I'll answer them at the end as well. So definitely just let me know. And everyone who's said, yep, can we definitely get a copy of the temp stuff? I'll send that through to you guys. Thank you for pushing that through. And also anyone who's mentioned, so Sharon, I know you've mentioned you want a copy of the Becoming a Subject Matter Expert, so we'll do that as well. So keep typing away, type your questions as we go, and what we'll do is you can, most of you, not everyone, but most of you will have this little drop-down box that has handouts as an option. In there, we have the handouts for today's session. So if you want a copy of the notes, you can just download them now if you like, and that's absolutely fine. You can do that anytime during the session, but we will email them out as well in case you get caught and just can't download it from here, so that's fine. Okay, let me see. That's fine. I think we've got a few people coming through saying yes, definitely temp stuff. Yeah, we've got 250 of you on the line right now. So I dare say we're going to get caught up with some questions throughout. So if I do push your question to the end, please don't worry. Stay on the line. I'll make sure I answer it for you. All right, let's jump into everything. So this whole talent, the whole sort of job advertising process, I guess the main thing that's going to help me understand where your head is at the moment is really what your problem is. Okay, everyone's got different sets of problems. I went around the country and people were saying they had way too many candidates or too few candidates. So I'm going to start the session there. I'm going to post a poll up on your screen, which pretty much says, what's your problem? So I'm going to just launch that now. Give me 2 seconds. And I want you to answer that poll for me. Are you not getting enough candidates? Are you getting too many candidates? Is it that you're getting too many irrelevant candidates? Is it that hirers are just unrealistic, or maybe candidates are unrealistic and you can multi-select? Okay, you might say, oh, all of it. Or there might be certain components that are relevant to you. So just indicate to me what your main problems are, and we'll make sure that we address those throughout today's session as well. At the moment, I'll publish that up on the screen for you also. So at the moment, most people are saying too many irrelevant candidates, but we've got almost 75% of the votes in, so we'll just give the guys a couple more seconds and then I'll publish it. All right, that might do. Close. If you're too slow, sorry, I'll publish it up on the screen. Okay, so the big buckets of issues we're talking about is way too many irrelevant candidates. So relevance is a really key driver, and you guys have control over that to some degree. So I'm going to show you how you can take some of the control back when you're thinking about relevance. How do we get the most appropriate candidates applying to my roles, not all the desperate ones? Yeah, so I'll show you what you can do with language to really overcome that. Not enough candidates. So 52% said just not enough candidates. There might be working in an area where there's a complete critical shortage, or maybe there's so much competition for candidates that you're all fighting for that really same small limited talent pool. In that instance, job advertising alone may not be the solution for you. So we may need to think about coupling it up with searching as well. But we'll go through and make sure we address those. If your hiring managers or if your candidates have unrealistic expectations, you really need to be across your marketplace. So if you didn't do the first session, which was on becoming a subject matter expert, I really recommend that you do it, because what it does is it gives you the power to push them around a bit. So if your hiring managers are being unrealistic, you can set the expectation. You can give them enough information to be able to shape the way that they're thinking about a role and get them to be a bit more flexible. If candidates come in and say, I want $200,000 and you're only paying $100,000 and the market average is only $80,000, then you can manage that because you've got these data points to be able to say, you're more than double what we're looking to offer and $120,000 above the national average for this sort of role. So are you actually looking for this type of role? Are you looking for something different? Because it seems a bit odd that you'd be that far removed from what the market rates are. And that independent data can be really useful. All right, so I'm going to close that and you should be able to come back to my screen again. So I'll just double check that you guys are coming back. Let's see, it's just waiting. Here we go. You should be able to see it up on your screen now. So what I want to start with is just give you guys a bit of an understanding of what actually happens to your job today, because it has changed. The moment that you post your ad on Seek, and for the last 5 years this has sort of been occurring as well, but we not only post your ad up onto a desktop computer, which is quite a large size screen, but it also gets pushed out across all tablets and all mobile devices. We now have iPhone, iPad, Android apps, so things are somewhat customized, but there's a lot of unstructured data that you guys enter in, so all of your content for the body of your ad that you have complete control over the structure of. So we need to make sure that you're aware that you need to structure it up so that it works and renders well across all of those devices, because you create one ad copy, but it needs to work well everywhere. The other thing to consider is that it's real time. So not only are you posting the ad and people can search for it and find it, which makes sense, but people are being notified on their device. And we see people come in and out of their smartphones up to 10 times a day. So we want to make sure that when they're coming in and out, that they're actually seeing your ad and they're wanting to engage with it. Okay, if you write your ad and then you think, oh, I'll just come back later and I'll edit it then, it's too late. Candidates have already made a decision. They've seen you, they've either said yes or no, and they've moved on to the next role. So going back and editing, even though you can physically do it, it's not necessarily the best solution. You really want your ads to be right from the get-go. Now, it only takes us about 7 seconds. Okay, 7 seconds for us to be able to scan all of the data that's in the body of your ad, your job title, all of that component, all of the data fields that you enter in, and then be able to run it through our talent search platform. If you guys aren't aware of our talent search platform, it's only about 20% of you that are actually physically using it and searching for talent at the moment, so some of you might not be. But basically we have all of this candidate data. And the candidate data, we have maybe 1 in 3 working Australians that say, yep, here's how much money I want, here's my work history, here's where I'm located, where I'm willing to move to, a whole range of really rich information about themselves. And what we do is we take your ad and we push it through that talent search platform, and then we return back a list. And that list is of potentially matching candidates. The better ones are towards the top and the weaker matches are towards the bottom, but we try and give you a really broad list. It could be a couple of thousand people. But ultimately that list sits there so that you don't have to wait for applications. You can just go in and headhunt people as you wish, but not everyone's accessing it. And a lot of the reason is because they don't come to Seek to post their ads. So if that's you, just know that it's there. And if you want to access it, you can. It's free. So you just basically, it's using the power of your job ad to try and find really relevant talent pools. So if you're finding that you're getting irrelevant matches with candidates, one, it could be that your data within your body of your job ad, so the content that you've written is appealing to all the wrong people. Or 2, you may not be taking control of the situation. So you need to sort of go in and take out the ones that you want. But that takes us 7 seconds to do. Now, the other thing that happens is on day 2, we send out a job mail alert, and we send out over 40 million of these each month. Now, when the job mail alert goes out, the candidates then get to pick and choose which ads appeal. They get to set all their parameters. They'll say, I just want to look for CEO roles at Google. I'm currently working at Macca's at the moment. So, you can have a little bit of disconnect because the candidate is fully driving what roles will come up. What we want to do is we sort of want to get a nicer balance. Okay, for candidate searches, if they set their notifications, if they set their job mail, it's all very candidate driven. And that's where the imbalance occurs. We know that candidates will be looking for more aspirational opportunities. So I'm in this role now and I want to go to the next level. Whereas you're probably looking for someone at the same level. Okay, I want someone that's got the experience that can come over here and add value to our business. So there's a bit of disconnect between what the candidates want and what you necessarily want. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take this idea of using the candidate data that maps back to your job ad, but give your ads better reach. Okay, so at the moment, the candidate might miss your ad because they're looking more aspirationally. We wanted to get the right candidate seeing your job ads that make a better direct connection. So what we also send out is what's called a weekly roundup. Now that weekly roundup looks very similar to a job mail alert, but we use data science to be able to push it out to both active and passive candidates. Active candidates is pretty easy. Okay, so active candidates, we look at, let's use electricians. Electricians, great example. So let's take an electrician. Let's have a look at this one electrician. What roles did they apply to? And there might be 10 electrician roles, but they've only applied to 3 of them. Why those 3? What's similar? What's different about them? Is it that they didn't see the other ones, they didn't like the brand, they didn't like the way the ad was structured? There must be something that the candidate wasn't attracted to. Maybe when they looked, they just didn't see it, or they got distracted, or it wasn't the right time for them. So what we do is a week after they start applying to roles, because we know they've become active, a week later, we look at the ads that they've applied to, we look at their profile, and then we go back out and we scoop up all the ads that are the next best matching. And then we resurface them in front of the candidate and say, hey, here's some jobs we thought you might be interested in. And they go, oh, I didn't see that one. Maybe I'll apply to that one. And we see there's an uplift of about 7 times uplift in those job ads where we do that with. With passive candidates, a little bit more tricky, because how do we reach that passive audience? Well, in the talent search platform, not everyone's active. Okay, they're not necessarily coming to the site every day. They're not searching for jobs. They're not necessarily applying for roles. So we might have a pool of 1,000 electricians, but only 10% of them are actively applying for roles right now. So we look at the behaviour of those active candidates, and then we take those passive candidates and we send them the jobs that the active candidates are applying to. So we'll scoop up all those roles that those active candidates are applying to and say, hey, here's some jobs that candidates like you are applying to, thought you might be interested in. And so we do that, and we use data science to be able to do all that mapping process. So it's becoming a hell of a lot more sophisticated, but the idea here is that we can actually drive greater relevance. Amy's got a question that she said I can answer later. Okay, I'll come back to that one. And Ray says, we have mostly part-time and casual positions. Yep, I can send you the temporary stuff. Okay, cool. Amy said that the function is similar to LinkedIn. How do you see Seek as has a competitive advantage over this? Amy, I'll talk to more of the talent search platform in the second session, or the last session for today. But I guess the main competitive advantage from a Seek perspective is that candidates come to Seek because they're interested in a job. Now, the attitudes around having a job have significantly changed. You know, I've had a profile on Seek for the last 3 years. I love working at Seek. It would take a lot for me to want to leave Seek, but the reality is that I am open to opportunities. And if the right opportunity was presented in front of me, then I'd want to know about it. And I wouldn't want to miss out on opportunities just from not having a profile, but I don't want to have to go through applications. I don't want to have to go through interviews. I just don't want to have to do that unless someone said, hey, no, we actually think that this is going to be right for you. So we have a lot of that sort of active and passive, but what candidates do in that environment is they provide us with rich information that you don't get on the open market. Okay, so LinkedIn, Facebook, maybe Facebook not so much, but definitely LinkedIn is a public profile, right? So, and Twitter, you know, I have my profile on there as well, but they can, you know, I'm connected to my mum, I'm connected to you guys. So I'm not going to put out there where I'm living, where I'm willing to work, what locations, how much money I want, how active or passive I am. I don't want to do that. You know, I want to have some level of privacy. I don't want my boss to know that I'm looking for a job. I'm connected with them as well. So I guess what Seek does, it provides this environment that is private, but still rich in detail so that you guys can make a very warm connection. I'd say that'd be the main difference. All right, I'm going to continue moving on because I'm conscious that we're now, 20 minutes in, so we've got a fair bit to cover. So let's talk about, I'm going to park some of the questions to the end, so please keep typing them as you wish, and I'll make sure I loop back and answer all the questions as we go. All right, so there's 4 main things. 4 main things that I really want to cover. You've got to get your content right. I know you would have heard it many times before, content's king, absolutely, but there's a lot of reason for that. And it's not just about content from a candidate's perspective, but content from a data perspective. You know, if you put really crappy content into your ads, we cannot remarket it out to the relevant talent pools because we won't know who the ad is for. And I'll talk about what crappy content looks like and what good content looks like as well. Now, the layout of the ad is going to be critical because as good as your content might be, if you don't structure it, candidates won't read it. And at the end of the day, you do need that engagement from the individual to actually say, that's a brand that I want to work with, that's the job I want to do, and I understand it, and it is relevant to me. If you have a very unstructured environment, a lot of the irrelevant candidates will seep into that process because they're not reading all of your ad. Now, one really emerging space is this visual impact. So how do you utilize video more effectively? Because video is growing quite significantly. And then how do we actually make sure that we're optimizing for the mobile platform? And I'm going to talk about that at the end. So we're going to go through those 4 main concepts, and then I'll wrap up with some functional steps of how you actually do it. And I'll give you some examples as well. All right, so fair bit to cover in terms of content. And for those guys who say that their audio is sort of clicking in and clicking out, rather than listening through your PC, it might be better to dial in through the telephone line. So just click your audio over to telephone. It'll give you a dial-in number and PIN that you can drop in. All right, so content. Oh, content's a really interesting one. I think I've mentioned, really crappy content or vague content, all that sort of stuff. What I mean by that is if you have information in your ad that a candidate starts reading and then says, the company believes in a blah, 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 blah. We currently have an exciting opportunity for a blah, 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 blah. Contribute to the development, blah, 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 blah. That's the problem, okay? Because the blah, blah, blah is where they're switching from engaged reading to scan reading. The other problem that we have is there's no depth to the information here. These could, well, the first two in particular, they could exist in any ad. So how do we know which candidates are relevant and which ones aren't? Because the information is too generic. The company believes in a strong organizational culture based on its core values of teamwork, attitude, well-being, respect, integrity, flexibility, and communication. They could exist anywhere. And a candidate doesn't know any more about the role or the company by reading that. It does sound like marketing jargon, and candidates don't connect with it. They go, well, I don't even know if it's believable. So it might be believable and might be real, and they may be the values of your business, but candidates don't get it. It's out of context. They only get it once they're in the business. And so communicating core values needs to be done in a different way. If you want to, why is that important? Why is teamwork important? What will they be doing where teamwork will be essential? So it's more about the what. And that real description, what will they actually be doing? And that's going to help them understand the role a hell of a lot better, and it will help our data scientists understand what the role is, what it means, and who are the best candidates to match to it as well. So really thinking about that language. What I wanted to give you guys, though, just for a bit of fun, is an example of a real ad. This is a real ad. It's from a couple of years ago, and it's probably the best example of blah, blah, blah that I've found. So I'm going to put it up on your screen. And I'm going to read it out. I'll read some of it, not all of it, because it's quite long. But to join our team, this is for an administrator, to join our team, you must be exceptional at what you do, no full stop. We are looking for the ninjas of awesome, the people who put the awe in awesome, no full stop. We are looking for the exceptional people who are not looking for a job but a mission, a calling, a mission. You're energetic, fun, and driven to succeed. You're totally exhilarated by the idea of spread sheets, 2 words, who knew, and what they can do for the world. You probably think people don't given them enough credit. Nice typo. You have great attention to detail to the point of being anal. Nice. You could organize anything. You multitask like a freaking legend. You're probably not someone who likes to stand still for very long. Oh my goodness. So we're basically looking for a ninja, right? If you're a ninja, you got this job nailed. But I thought it was quite amusing when I first started reading it, even though there was typos and stuff. Candidates don't like it when there's typos because they just think that it's unprofessional. So you really want to nip that in the bud. But ultimately, as you move through the ad, you do expect that you're going to move out of the humor very quickly and into the body of the role. And, you've got to be careful with humor. A technical role will not want this humor. What they will want is the really specific detail. But as you can see, the ad goes on and on and on. Okay, you'll get up at 5 a.m. to try and train in the way of the ninja. There's lots of stuff here. All of it is about how you can be a ninja. Down at the very bottom, it says, sound like you. Send your CV to us. Along with a written response, maximum 600 words, pretty good advice, specifically addressing the criteria above. Now, there's no criteria. And makes it very difficult. I mean, unless you're a freaking ninja, then there's probably no criteria there really to address. But ultimately, we want to be able to make sure we get to the real functional parts of the role so someone can start relating to it. At the moment, they're getting a little bit overwhelmed, they're getting a bit tired, and they start to think, you guys aren't professional at all, you're just a bit quirky, a bit weird. So you start to disconnect. And so you've got to be really careful with humour. But then they realise that they actually forgot to put in the criteria for them to address. So they continue on with the humour in a Darth Vader theme music without the R on Vader. And then they start listing out some of the duties that they could potentially do because they're looking for several roles. So, again, they're not really committing to what the actual function of the role is or what they'll be doing. And it keeps it really vague for the candidate. And again, send your application with covering letter, and still they don't know how to close off the ad, so they continue talking again and again. And so it is the longest ad, the most painful ad that I've ever read. Yes, it definitely has elements of humour, which can get you cut through. I will admit it, humour can work, but it has to be good, it has to be succinct, and it has to be on brand. If you do anything like this, you need to make sure you're keeping it on brand for your business because you could do a huge amount of brand damage if you don't. What I'd prefer to see in ad copy is action-driven content. And the main reason for that is because candidates can quickly identify what it is that you want them to do and what their level of responsibility is going to be. If you say, this is a brilliant opportunity to join a fantastic company and do some wonderful work on some great projects, it's way too vague. A really good candidate doesn't still get it. They sort of want the really functional stuff. So maybe you'll collaborate on a key project to redefine or redevelop our social media platform. You will integrate three separate operating platforms into one and manage budget pipelines of $3 million. Like that way you're using some of these action words, collaborate, manage, create, expand, run, define. So these action-driven words can work exceptionally well. In a senior role, in a professional role, really easy. In a blue-collar role, a temporary role, maybe a little bit more difficult. But, you're not going to tell a picker and packer that they're going to revolutionize the way that we instrumentally pick and pack items out of storage and place them onto the back of a heavy commercial vehicle. Right? It just sounds weird. It's the oversell. But what you would probably do is that you would say you would operate a reach forklift. And operate's a much better word because it forces you to tell them what they're going to operate. So it forces you to be granular. And that's the idea of the action word. Often we write sentences that are very laborious. We finally get to the point at the end. So this is a great opportunity for a management accountant to really take the next step in their career by leading a team. Okay, the most important part there for the management accountant is lead a team. And we've said it at the end and we've given no detail. If you scrap all the fluff at the beginning and put lead a team right at the very beginning, you can't just say that. You'll say lead a team. You can't just say that alone. It doesn't make any sense. So you'd say lead a team of how many, doing what, specializing what to achieve what. And all of a sudden you have really rich information that the candidate can connect with. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So this action-driven content is extremely powerful. Candidates, all the research, we've done heaps of research over the years. We've done eye tracking technology where we mount cameras on the four corners of the screen and we watch where the eye passes over the page, then we heat map it to see where the eye goes. We do focus groups and we've split them by industry, by seniority. We've also done quantitative and qualitative surveys as well. And I guess what we've traditionally found is that candidates buy into an ad. Okay, so they sort of need to move their way through in chunks. So the very first chunk is, are my core basics being met? So is it a job title that makes sense to me? Is it in a location I'm willing to work in? And is it paying roughly the salary or the salary package structure that I'd be expecting? So communicating all of these things is going to be really important. Even if you can't say the exact salary, if you say it's a base plus super plus commission plus car park, that's fine. It gives them an idea of what the package looks like. Once they say, yeah, all of my core minimum basics have been met, they dial up and they go, okay, I need some really factual information about the company, about the role, and about the skills that are required to do it, just to make sure that this is something that sounds like me. So the company, if you're going to talk about the company, be really specific. Is it local, national, global? What do they specialize in? What are they renowned for? How many people do they employ? That sort of stuff's really important. So you're a global steel manufacturing company specializing in marine, plant and equipment, employing over 300 staff. That's how I want that to be communicated. With the duties, again, being really specific. The more specific you can be, the better our algorithms will work for you. Okay, if you want someone to run reports, let's say how often they need to run them, what system they'll be using, and even for what team, right? So rather than just saying create monthly reports using SQL for the sales department, you could even go that far. So just make sure that if you're using it as a bullet point though, that you keep your bullet points to one line. And I'll show you some of these rules and tips later on, but one line across as you'd see it on a desktop computer, it's roughly 65 characters. But you want to be really specific. With the skills and experience, try and avoid stuff that you can't qualify. The ones that I hate are must have a can-do attitude and must be able to comply with our occupational health and safety standards. And the reason why I don't like these is because if I put in CPA qualified, can-do attitude, comply with our occupational health and safety standards, candidate will go, oh, well, I got 2 out of 3. I don't know what that CPA thing is, but I can do the other 2. So we give them windows of opportunity to buy into the ad. And it's very rare that someone will be looking for a job and say, oh, sort of got a can't do attitude, but, I'll give it a crack anyway. It's really unlikely. So we want to put in things that the candidate can qualify and you can qualify, and it doesn't give them too much leeway. If you only have one thing to list, just list one thing. Don't worry about what does it look like on the page. We don't want to give candidates any unnecessary reading. If there's stuff in there that they sort of go, yeah, whatever, then we need to delete that out, because that's when they start to click off from engaged reading and they move to scan reading. Now, once they've dialed through all of those elements, the next thing that they're doing is that they are looking for the meaning. How does it sound like me? Do other people like me want to work in that organization? What will I actually be doing? So all of that sort of stuff is going to be important to address. So I'm going to just take you through a couple of them. The role purpose, what I typically see is that when people write an ad, they'll start with about the company, and they'll talk about the company, and they might nail that. Okay, writing about the company is pretty easy. It's national, it's local, it's global, it employs certain people, and it's renowned for certain things. Okay, nailed that part. But then in the role purpose, they might say about the role, this is an exciting opportunity for a management accountant to perform but not be limited to the following tasks. And that's the blurb. And if you could imagine, I'm a candidate, what have I now learnt from that blurb that I didn't know before reading it? And the reality is I have learnt nothing new, because I already knew the job title, already knew I was in a company, already knew you were looking for someone, and I knew I'd have to do tasks and not be limited to them. So we need to delete it. I wouldn't use it. I'd just get rid of it. You don't need it. Put in about the role and then tell them what they'll be coming in to do and focus on the action words. So perhaps what they'll be coming in to do is that they're going to be collaborating closely with the CFO on a business critical project to reduce days outstanding. You will create and lead a team of 3 experts to deliver the project on time and to budget. That's their purpose. Okay, collaborate, create, lead, deliver. These are the action words that we're looking for. Now, again, with temp roles and blue collar roles, you may not have a role purpose. You might delete it completely and go from company and straight into duties. Because if you are going to go in there and tell them how to suck eggs, they don't want to know about that either. Okay, as a mechanic, you'll be required to maintain vehicles. Where it could be interesting is if you're looking for, say you're looking for a heavy commercial vehicle mechanic, but it's up in the mining area, then there might be an assumption that candidates that are looking at that ad would say they're going to be working on mining equipment, okay, whether it's in the field, probably in the field because it's going to be so big, but if they're not, then you probably, and they're just working in, say, a supporting industry, maybe they're going to be working on light vehicles, trucks and trailers. So then I'd want to promote it. I'd say you will be repairing and maintaining light vehicles, trucks and trailers in an air-conditioned workshop. So then they start to go, oh, that's different to what I expected to read. Because there's a lot of assumptions going on. Candidates are trying to scan, read and pump through things, and they go in with an assumed knowledge based on the job title and what they see in market. And so if you need to break that assumption, that's when I take some time to narrate it out, just to make sure that they sort of get it. But again, it needs to be concise and needs to be filled up with action words. Culture, if you can put in a video, I absolutely would. If you can't, then talk about why other people choose to align their careers with you. Now, I'll give you this example from Seek. It's a data scientist. So we put in our cultural section when we're looking for a data scientists choose to align their career with Seek because we are innovative. We empower our scientists to try new models and develop new technologies to solve local and global problems. That's the why factor. And I think that's the problem, is that a lot of us look at culture and we sort of go, oh, top level, we're fun, we're hardworking, we have great work-life balance, people love working here, and we're just too generic. And everyone says it just sounds like everyone else. That's not the idea. We really want to bring it right down to a very granular level. Why do people in these roles or in these departments try to choose to align their careers here? So why would someone leave being an astrophysicist or a rocket scientist and choose to be a data scientist with Seek? Why? Because they're solving local and global problems that no one else has done before. So it's interesting, it's new work, they have carte blanche control, these sorts of things, these are the motivators. With our call center and customer service roles, we say our call center specialists choose to align their careers with Seek because we have dedicated mentoring and career development plans that saw more than 15% of our workforce promoted in the last 12 months. So we use our promotion data to be able to communicate why it's an entry point level role and why we will help develop them and help them through with their career. So that's the main driver for them. Benefits, I would just list them. If you're going to say that they get staff discount, tell them how much. If they get an online rostering system, what are the shifts? All of this sort of stuff, really detailed, because candidates just want the goodies bag. It's not going to be a deal breaker. But what they do is they sort of rationalise it across everything else that they've read, but they also rationalise across what they're currently getting. And this information could be helpful. Just be selective. When you're putting in your benefits, if you think the person that you're targeting wouldn't care about them, take it out. Some people might not care about if they have study options because you're targeting a very senior person, so maybe the study option piece wouldn't be as interesting, but a more junior person would, or someone that's going to be able to move up through the ranks. Ultimately, if you can do all of those things, your content will be scientifically sound. Okay, you won't need to worry about it. If you've ticked all those buckets, you've done all of the right stuff. So we'll be able to extract out the most relevant content out of your ad and then map it through our talent search platform and then try and force that match for you. So you get more and more quality candidates looking at your ads and applying to your roles. You'll also be able to then proactively tap into them from a talent search perspective as well. But we'll address that in this afternoon's session. So we want to talk about layout, and because even though your content might be great, if it looks like you've just vomited on the page, no one's going to read it, right? You've got to put some structure around it. And there's a lot of really interesting information out there. The average engagement on any web page is usually about the very first 10 seconds. Somebody will look at your page and visually they need to be able to connect with the information there, believe that all the content that they need is going to be there and it's going to be in bite-sized chunks so they can easily move their way through it. Okay, they need to be able to digest it. If they are looking at it and their eyes zipping all over the page and they're going, oh, this is just so overwhelming, then you're going to lose them. Ultimately, if you get through the first 10 seconds, the majority of them will stay. You can see there's not much drop off. After the 20-second mark, it all sort of plateaus a bit. So realistically, we just want to get them and keep them. And the problem that we have with a lot of ads is that we give you full control over the structure. So you get to put in whether you have bolded headings or paragraph breaks or bullet points or narration. And as a result, if you don't execute that well, then what will happen is that candidates just won't want to read you. They'll look at it and they'll go, blah, 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 too hard, I'll come back later. And so we want to be able to give you the ability to understand which structure is going to work best and why. Because on the average web page, people have time to read and absorb about 30% of content at best. It's probably between 20 to 30% of content. Now, when there's eye tracking technology has been done, we've done it, but we haven't done it recently. This is a more recent version. They're going to pop up on your screen. So this one's not on Seek, but it's a job ad. And what they do is they heat map it. And what you'll see is that the candidate's eye moves in what we call an F formation. So it makes the letter F. And the F at the top of the page is stronger. And as you go down, the F becomes weaker and weaker and weaker to the point where you can see that the candidate is fundamentally not reading maybe half of the content there. They're scan reading a lot and missing out big chunks, especially down towards this bottom section. And they're doing that because it's unstructured. They're reading half of the sentence. This is a great opportunity to do blah. This is what you'll be doing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm either in or I'm out. So what we want to think about is candidates come to a job ad to get information. And so we need to structure the ad like an informational site. So Wikipedia is probably the most common example I could give you. Its credibility is questionable sometimes, but it does have really good structure. So if you're looking for something, it'll give you history, timeline, it might give you family, a whole range of different headings, but you can basically segment through and read the bit that you're looking for. To give you another example, I'm going to show you this other informational site about ducks, because, ducks are so relevant for today's example. But it's a different type of eye tracking. It's a number-based eye tracking. So what happens here is that the person looks at the page, the eye scans through it, and then they go, I'm looking for habitat. They read each heading as they move down, they find habitat, and they read it in saturation. And they read it over and over and over again. They might jump out to look at something else and they come back and read it in saturation. And that's what we want them to do with your ad. We want them to saturate their eyes so they get it, they understand it, they know where to go to find it. Because even though this is showing 2 desktop examples, if you're on a mobile device, it's even harder. So we want to make sure that the eye is getting saturated in the right places. So from a Seek perspective, how do you achieve that structuring? Easy, bolded headings. Bolded headings above every paragraph. If you do nothing else after walking away from this hour session today, I suggest you do bolded headings because it adds structure. Candidates can look at it and go, company role, duties, experience, culture, benefits apply. Which part do I want to read first? And I don't care how long your ad is. Your ad can be very, very long. It doesn't particularly matter. As long as the content is interesting, it's concisely written, because if you have waffle, then I delete it out, make it shorter. If you don't need an about the role section, delete it out. This one I've actually added in technical skills. So rather than just having it all blended in with the duties, these are the duties, these are the functional parts of the role, these are technical skills that we require, and then the experience. So if you need extra headings, put them in. If you want to change my headings, fine. Just make your headings a heading, because candidates can scan, read up to 3 words, and that's fine. They don't actually do any extra effort or any extra work. But if they have to scan a whole sentence, they can't do it. So if you said, these are the roles and responsibilities and requirements for this job, that's a sentence. Even if you bold it, it's still a sentence, and they have to physically read it, and it's again taking up energy. Just convert it down to duties, tasks, responsibilities, something like that, and that way you can get better cut through. All right, video. Everyone loves video. Not many people are using it though. I don't know how many of you, I do it all the time, but I have to do a VLOOKUP every now and again, and in an Excel spreadsheet, and every single time I go to do it, I always forget how to do it. So I try and look up on the Microsoft Help. It's a nightmare trying to read their instructions. I go straight to YouTube. Some 12-year-old kid shows me how to do it in 3 minutes. But video is a great way to learn. Google is the #1 search engine in globally. YouTube is the number 2 search engine globally. So people are going to these sorts of environments to learn, and we want to make sure that if we're trying to communicate what it is about our culture, about our company, if we've got areas where we want to diversify our workforce, whether that be in nationality, if it be in disability, in gender, we want to be able to showcase that we not only have the policies in place, because anyone can have a policy, but we actually live and breathe it, and that we really want to encourage this in the workplace, and that we want to really use some real life examples and bring our ad to life. So rather than us just telling you why people like to work here, let's actually get our people telling you. So there's lots of different examples that you can deploy, but I guess the main trick is to not focus so much on the entertainment, but to focus on the information, because candidates, again, are still trying to grab information. So it needs to really focus in on the function of the role, what they do, why they do it, how they do it, why they love working in that organization. The entertainment can come in the background. It can sort of float in. It can have the music, it can have the layout, it can show people laughing, but it doesn't dominate. The information still needs to dominate. When we see video being used in ads, there's about a 20% uplift in applications. Adelaide City Council ran an ad, and when I was in Adelaide, the lady who actually created it, she said that they had 98 applications for a CIO role. And I've gone, oh my God, that must have been terrible. And she said, no, 90% of the candidates were excellent, and we were thrilled. So they were not only getting more applications, but the quality of the applications was so much better as well. In the end, they had 5 candidates they could have placed. They obviously placed only the one, but they were very happy, and they've now made it policy that for all senior roles, they will do video, a job-specific video every single time. And it's something to really consider. And I'll show you, I won't be able to play them through our technology today because it won't work for everyone. But what I will do is I'll give you some links that you guys can play later on. But things to think about, really think about complementing your ad content. Okay, it needs to add additional weight to your content because not everyone will play the video. They might not want to use their downloads, or they might be at work and it's not really appropriate. So thinking about if you've got really good, powerful messages in your video, make sure they're represented in your content as well. And the same thing goes with your video. Don't take a long time to get into your core messages. Try and hit them straight up because candidates will give you probably first 10 seconds to say, do I want to continue watching or not? So we want to make sure that they say yes and they continue watching all the way through. The average video length I would suggest is between 1 to 2 minutes. On YouTube, if you have a video that runs 4 to 5 minutes, about 60% of people will watch it through to the end. On YouTube, if you have a video that runs 1 to 2 minutes, about 75% will watch it through to the end. So it's a really good rule of thumb to try and keep them shorter and more concise. If you can include structure, great. What I mean by that is you might want to put up little bubbles on the screen so that not only are they listening, but they're getting visual cues of what you're saying as well, and it'll help reinforce the message and for them to understand that they're moving on to, okay, we've talked about the role, we've talked about the company, we've talked about the work-life balance, and so it starts to take a logical structure. If you can, add captions and transcripts because we may have hearing impaired people, so always make it accessible. But then you need to decide which design style is going to be best for you and your purpose. You might have really transient workforce, so using people who currently work for you might not be the best solution. You might want to go with an animation instead because that way you don't need to worry about, oh, you know, all those people in the video have all left the company and it feels a bit weird. You might want to use a combination of what it is about your product, about your working environment, about the people that work for you. So you might use a combination of things. There's a few that I want to talk to. If you're a recruitment consultant, often you find it very, very difficult because you go, how do I do that when I can't communicate who the company is? A lot of recruiters work on a contingent basis, so that means they don't disclose who the company is when they advertise. People have done an exceptional job at this, where they do a video for every role that they run, they have a YouTube channel, they host them on their job ads on Seek, and when you play the video, it is usually the managing director, and he'll talk about the role. So what are they actually looking for and the key elements that they need to call out because they work in the technology space. So there will be a level of assumption of the candidate when they come in. So they might come in and they're looking for a C++ kernel software engineer, and they'll be looking for that sort of person. And then they need to really call out that this is actually a client-facing role and they'll need to be doing some consulting work as well. So that helps set the candidate's mindset to go, oh, it's not just in-house, it's also external consulting. All right, got that, I'm interested or I'm not interested. So that's what you need to think about as well. But play that video later on if you're a recruitment consultant. Warehouse Stationery, great Kiwi brand, and they've made this animation. It's really powerful. It's only, I think, about just over 2 minutes, but the animation has been used because it retails a high turnover segment as well, but they're looking for assistant store managers. And they talk about all of the benefits that you get for working there and about their company and about the size and about how, why other people choose to align their careers with them. So they execute that pretty well. The one that I love the most, though, is by Google. No surprises, Google do most things well, but they have this way of being able to integrate their people element. So they showcase Raquel, who's in this senior role as a software engineer, and she's the main spokesperson. But they also endorse her by having the VP come in and talk about her role and her team's role in the Google business and how important it is. They also show the team's importance on society. So they clip out and they give images of what impact they're making on society. So when there's a tragic event that may occur in Haiti and they need to collect data so they can keep people informed on the internet about which areas are in crisis, which ones are accessible, where help can be found, all of that sort of data, people on the ground are in survival mode. But her role and her team's role is to be able to collate all those data from lots of different open sources and then combine them and make them accessible in real time. So her being able to bring that to life just completely shifted my mindset on what a software engineer meant when you work at Google. So I'd go through and play those, give you some ideas, because if you can utilize video to communicate the meaning of your role in your organization, you'll get significant cut through with candidates, and it's definitely an upward swinging trend. So keep an eye on video, try and invest in it. If you can't do it for every single role, which would be ideal, cluster your business into groups. So maybe by department, you might go, okay, well, for sales, this was what would work best with the sales teams. For maybe, or even all customer-facing teams, this is what would work best for them. For our shared services, this would work best for them. For our blue collar, this would work best for them. So you could actually have some clusters and have videos sort of scrolling through. But I definitely encourage you to think about that. Finally, this platform optimization is really thinking about mobile. Mobile 5 years ago, less than 2% of our traffic. Today, it's more than 59%. So it's the dominant way that people are actually read and engage with your content. Google's done a fair bit of research. There's like a 100-page deck that you can download. I put all the sources on each slide as well, so you guys can have a look at it later. But in there, they basically highlight that 90% of people use their smartphone to look for information. And when they find it, 86% of them take action as a result of finding that information. So, really easy example, I'm looking for a new tablet. I walk into a store. I want to make sure I'm not getting ripped off. So I look up on my smartphone, okay, is that a good price for the tablet? Yes or no? Where can I get one cheaper? And I make a decision as a result of the information I've just found. Now, when it comes to jobs, if candidates are looking for information on taking their next career move, we want to make sure that they can action it. At the moment, 30% of all applications are via a mobile device, but the main barrier to them applying via mobile is largely because you guys haven't necessarily optimized your application process. Okay, so it's hard. If you click on apply and you have to link away to another process and to another website, and you have to pinch the screen and you have to attach things which you can't attach from your phone, it becomes a bit of a disaster. So I really encourage you to get your smartphone, search for one of your jobs, see how well it looks. Do you compete well with others? Do you need to tweak it up or tweak it down? When you click on your body of your job ad, is it structured well? Does it look like it's just a big mess and you don't want to read it? Then get some structure in there, get your language a bit more concise. If you click apply, how easy is it for you to complete that application and attach your resume? That's the way that you sort of go through just really simple functionality of being able to work out where are my barriers. I need to make sure that whole end-to-end process for candidates is absolutely seamless. Because even though on a desktop computer, I'll be able to see a lot of the structure. So when you guys create your ads, it might look really good on a desktop computer, but when you go to a mobile screen, you get 1/5 of the content on that full screen. So candidates just can't read and retain it because it's not in their line of sight. They have to flick up, flick down, flick backwards, flick forward. So if they're doing that, you need some structure in there to help them. So really think about that mobile experience, because what we want to do is we want to move your ad from being really dense and unstructured to having some headings, okay? So where they can go, okay, that's the company, that's the job description, this is what you're looking for. And if you can even inject video, you can see that that's a really great way to get branding into the body of your ad. There's no other way in the body of your ad, there's absolutely no other way to get branding into it unless you have video content. On a mobile device, you can get it on the very first screen, where you got your little short descriptions, but ultimately there's no other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up over these next 7 minutes, and I'm also going to then answer all of your questions that have been backlogging. So thank you for typing those. But I guess the key things to remember is that even though we need a lot of your content to help power the data science and the algorithms to push your ad out to really relevant talent pools, that's not the be-all and end-all. Okay, you still need to enhance that candidate user experience. So optimize what it looks like when you post the one ad. What does it look like on a desktop, on a tablet, on a mobile? Do they want to read it? Do they want to engage with it? So really thinking about getting a good balance between the two. Now, to do that, how do you actually physically do it? We have some template guides here for you. So you can have these, you can print them out and use them. So in these template guides, it tells you what to put where. And in the body of the ad that I'll show you in a second, it tells you how many characters you should use and gives you a whole heap of narration. But for the short description, this is one that a lot of people really, really struggle with. And what I thought would be good is to actually show you how you actually do it. So if you need a job title that makes sense, rather than saying sales guru extraordinaire, okay, no one's going to know what that is. Let's actually use a job title that makes sense. It's a National Business Development Manager. It gives me a really clear idea of what the scope of my role is straight up just from the job title alone. What's my salary? 85 base, 18 car allowance plus bonuses. So that sort of stuff's really specific. The location's really specific. I want to know something about the position, the company, the key benefits, about what my purpose is. You know, I really want to know about all those components. So it's a large multinational organisation specialising in corporate imaging. Manage and grow action words, the government, healthcare and corporate portfolio. Local and interstate travel, that's something that's going to impact me, but could also be a benefit, but you flag it so candidates can make that choice. Lead new business acquisition, grow the existing portfolio nationally, utilise your extensive signage experience to exceed revenue targets. All of those action words dotted in. They're not sentences, there's no waffle. Start with an action word, finish it concisely, move to the next action word. Okay, you can get so much more in. You've only got 150 characters in there. And if you want your brand to be showing up in a mobile environment and you don't use video, the only way you can have your brand in a mobile environment is to use the standout format or the premium ad format, which has your logo on it here. Okay, so if you're not doing that at the moment and you want it there, talk to your account manager. But ultimately, this is our recommended format because you get double the content to really position in your opportunity, but also gives you brand presence in mobile. Now, if you survive the short description cult, because they usually choose 3 summaries on average to click on and then move through to the body of the ad. So if you survive that and they're actually going to be physically looking at your ad, you just want them to stay with it. Some people like to write in narration. I don't have a problem with that. My preference is that you get a balance between narration and bullet points, just so you don't exhaust the candidate. Often when you do everything in narration, you have to put in lots of filler words. And when you put in filler words, and it might be talking about the duties and responsibilities. So as a National Business Development Manager, you will be managing a portfolio of 100 clients specialising in the corporate imaging sector. You will also be required to, so you can see there's a lot of filler words in there, whereas if you just had bullet points, you could just say national portfolio, corporate healthcare, government sector, blah, 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 and you can just move through them really quickly and people can tick them off in their mind. So it's just about how do we actually help them stick with it and not feel exhausted. But I've segmented out each component, much like those steps that we said earlier, but I've just framed them up. With the temporary one that I'm going to send through to you guys who've asked for it, it's the same structure. It's just the way that you use the language is slightly different because you're trying to generate a candidate pool. So I'm going to give you that example so you can see, that's how I'd use it for me. And if you haven't notified me already, just pop that in as a question or a notification somewhere for me or email me and I'll make sure I get it through to you as well. But these are my favorite. I use these all the time. If someone asks me to critique their ad, I move through this process. Does the job title make sense? Do I understand it? Does it rationalize with the other ads that are on site? Yep, you get 1 point. Has salary and benefits been described? No, it's been completely missed, 0 points. Location, is it correct and specific? Well, you've said that it's Sydney, but you haven't actually used the area breakdown of Parramatta and Western Suburbs, so you get half a point. So you can start to move through, and the idea here is that you can quickly, within 1 minute, assess your search results summary and then 1 minute your job ad details and identify which parts you're nailing and which parts need to be worked on. And it's those parts that need to be worked on is all I want you to touch. If you've got all those other components right, leave them, don't touch them. You don't want to recreate the wheel, you're trying to create efficiencies. And if you're critiquing somebody else's work, you want to help them get through it as well. Because if you can do all of this, if you can identify the bits that are broken in your ads right now, and then you can apply some of those structures from those templates, that's how you're going to move the dial on what you're doing. And then also sort of forward think as well. What can we do to think about video and think about how we optimize that mobile experience, because they're the things that candidates are going to care about. All right, so we've come close to time. I'm going to spend some time answering questions. For those of you who need to disappear, by all means do so. We'll continue recording the session right through to the end, and then we'll send through a copy of the recording and also a copy of the presentation. I dare say it'll probably come out tomorrow because we need to convert it over to YouTube to get them uploaded. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to go in and answer those myriad of questions that we've got sitting there for me. So Amy's asked, I recruit for the whole APAC, mainly Australia, Japan, China, and Philippines. Is Seek mainly for Australians only or available internationally? Amy, seek.com.au is largely targeted at Australians or for people who are wanting to work in Australia. We don't actively promote Seek internationally. In the Philippines or through Southeast Asia, we do have job boards. So in China, we have Xiaopin, and we don't have one in Japan, but across Southeast Asia we have JobsDB and JobStreet. So it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to attract internationals to come and work at work in Australia, then I would still list your ad in Australia. People who want to come here will find Seek because we're the largest job board in Australia. So there's no issue with internationals being able to come in. They make up about, I think it's less than 6% of our overall traffic. In the talent search platform, if you advertise for candidates in an international location, you will be able to access those candidates and see if they're willing to relocate to Australia as well. So there's real benefits in being able to use the free talent search offering that we have with standard talent search. Amy's also wants to know, I would like to hire people who are willing to move overseas. Okay, a Chinese overseas student here who is willing to go back to work in China. No, I wouldn't use Seek for that. I would go to Xiaopin because basically candidates don't typically come to Seek to go and work overseas necessarily. Although, you know, we do have our overseas settings, so you could give it a crack, but ultimately I honestly believe, based on the population size, that you would get a much more successful hit rate in just trying to hire in the local area rather than trying to get a Chinese student to want to relocate back to China. It is possible. I just think that you probably have a better hit rate just hiring in that local location. Nikki's asked, what time is the last session? 1:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Julie said, I use talent search daily and have been very successful. We have saved thousands on agency fees. They present the same candidates. Well, you know what? Recruiters will need to be able to utilize it and do a really effective job too. But yeah, it's great that it's working. Could I please also get the information about casual? Yep, can do. So I've got a few of those. Yep, Tessa, I got yours about the temp as well. Narelle, we are located between the Hunter and Central Coast and often would like to have and need applicants from both areas, but can only select one area for our ad. I've got a great solution for you, Ray. We've recognised that locations need to be more granular and that candidates are also keyword searching by suburb. So what we've built is an algorithm that actually picks up the suburb that the candidate is typing into their keyword search, and it scans your ad for those suburbs, and it also scans for neighbouring suburbs as well. So we've put in some richness around sort of next 10Ks, next 20Ks, and so it sort of goes out in bands. And what we are going to deploy in the next I think it's in the next few weeks. It's still in testing, but it's in its final stages. But ultimately, what it will do is if a candidate types in the keyword, I don't know, maybe so around Hunter Valley, maybe Maitland, right? So say they might type in Maitland, and if you've got Maitland in the body of your ad, we'll find it. We will boost your ad to the top of the keyword results for them, so the top of the list, and where it normally says, I think it says Newcastle and Hunter Valley region or something like that, we'll actually replace that area breakdown with Maitland, so that when they're physically looking at it, they're going, I typed in Maitland, it's at the top of the list and it says Maitland. So we're going to put some greater search match components in there. So irrelevant of what location you choose, type the location, the exact locations into the body ad. So you could say, could be based in Maitland or could, you know, or whatever the other suburbs are, or whatever you think that the candidate might keyword search for location. So definitely do that and we'll start banding it out for you. The next stage of that, so we're using pure content to do the mapping at the moment. But the next stage of that is we're going to give you the ability to nominate a suburb as well. So you'll actually get that as part of the breakdown. We just need to build it ultimately, and it's easier for us to use data science and algorithms to power it at the moment, and then we'll build the functional stuff secondary. Malcolm's asked, will a replay be available? Yes, it will. It'll come onto YouTube later, or I'm guessing later this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. And Emily said that she's unable to attend the afternoon session, but yes, we will record it and we'll send that through. That's no problem. And yes, I'll send through copies of all the other ones that we've done. Taylor, when you are writing the why would someone choose to align their career here, can you have this out in a quote from an agent in the company? Yeah, absolutely. I actually saw one company that had it built in as a quote, and they had like an image of a person as well. So it was almost like a testimonial. I think that's really powerful. The only challenge is that when you do that sort of thing, it's only, if it's built into the template, it's only visible on desktop. As soon as it goes over to a tablet or a mobile, all templated stuff, all the pretty stuff gets stripped off and only the content gets pushed through. So just be mindful of whether you're going to template it in or if you're going to physically type it in. Maybe just bold it, maybe change the size of it and put it in quotes. That way it can sort of stand out a bit. Would you suggest, so Sophia said, would you suggest only referring to selection criteria and providing a link to PD, or outlining all of the selection criteria in the advertisement? No, you avoid selection criteria full stop. Candidates don't want selection criteria. I know it makes your job easier, but the reality is that the marketplace is going to tighten. The other thing that it depends on the role, right? If you've got what selection criteria does, it puts a barrier in between you and a candidate. And if you want the best candidates showing interest in your role, you probably want to make selection criteria a secondary step. So I think a lot of the assumption has been made that, well, because we can do it online, we just tell the candidate to do everything, and then only those that complete it will we consider and then move through to the next stage of the process. But what happens is you end up with pretty wishy-washy candidates in some instances. I'd rather see all candidates that are interested and then take the cream of the crop and then get them to complete selection criteria secondary. And really question, is selection criteria necessary? Because the Australian Public Service has done a report on this many years ago even, saying that the whole idea of the merit system, so why we have selection criteria in the first place, is because we want to be able to rank the best talent. So we have the best talent at the top of the merit system and they sort of trickle down. Well, is merit really being served if the best candidates aren't even applying? And they really question this whole thought process of, do we even need it? Is it necessary? And there's lots of government departments, lots of councils that are pushing selection criteria aside and not doing it at all. And they're going back to traditional advertising, refining, shortlisting, interviewing processes without selection criteria at all. So I'd even question, do you need it? If you still have to use it because you've got some policy internally, then I would take it to, I wouldn't put all the criteria in the ad. I would say that for this role, you would need to complete selection criteria. You can download a copy of the criteria from this location, but you're going to lose them. You're going to lose some candidates. They just won't do it. So maybe you need to use some data to be able to move their thinking on that. Maybe if you did Sophie, if you did the session this morning, I'd be looking at your industry. I'd be finding out how difficult it's going to be to resource for in the regions that you usually recruit for, and then be using that as a lever to say, we need to get rid of it. Other government departments, other not-for-profits, other councils have gotten rid of it. We need to get rid of it as well because the markets move, the markets change. It's getting harder to find talent. And, if you're looking in the healthcare sector, it's more than double the national average in terms of growth rates. So, there could be really good levers there for you to use. Jane's asked, can there be too many benefits listed in an advert? Yeah, there could be. I think you need to identify which ones would the candidates care most about. If I was looking at a role, would I be interested in someone that's willing to pay for study? Yeah, sure. That there's career development plans in place? Yeah, that'd be interesting. That I get subsidised healthcare? Okay. There might be other things that I think, no, I really don't care. That you have a diversity policy, really don't care. I want to know why if you have a diversity policy, I'd be a bit concerned because obviously there's something wrong in your business that you have to have a policy for it, potentially. right? So there's things that you may need to say, do we need to have it in there? Don't we need to have it in there? How much would they care? Uh, I don't know, you could have 3, you could have 5, but it's not the deal breaker. So you don't need to throw too much at it. But I would address it when you're taking them through the interview process. Taylor's asked, what style of ad would you suggest for a call center sales role? Uh, I think that the structure that we went through, it works really well. The only difference with call center and sales is that they do like a bit of fun. So we dialing up a little bit of the fun element can be better. They still want professionalism. They still want to know they're going to have a career. So they want to be with a good business, good career, but that's fun. And that they're going to be working with other people who are good to hang around. So it's more about the people and the culture there. So I think that might be the only element. And you can also get away with a little bit more. Because they may be new to the industry, so the expectation of how you write the ad won't be as high. Clarissa's asked, can you please explain what contingent roles are? So contingent recruitment. And I think I did address this, but just in case I didn't, contingent basically means that you don't have the role exclusively. So as a recruitment consultant, and you're talking with, let's say, Woolworths have a role, and Woolworths say, okay, we're going to send it out to 6 recruiters to find me a new facilities manager. And you all try and work the role, and the recruiter that has the best candidate gets to make the placement. And then you do a whole heap of work, but don't get any money at the end of the day. So that's what a contingent role is. So you have to be fast. You have to be able to find the right candidates. A lot of the time you don't want to advertise who the company is because another recruiter will just come in and try and scoop the job out from underneath you. So that's basically what contingent's about. Renee's asked, how do we get video onto our Seek ad? It's free. It's free to include video in your ad. There's just a little field that you fill in. So you have to upload your video ad to YouTube. When you're in YouTube, you go to the bit where you say share and you select embedded link. And then when you copy that embedded code, that's the code that you need to drop in. And then that will render across desktop and mobile devices. Jennifer said, hi Narelle, many thanks for all the valuable information. Can you please send me the details? Yep, can do that. No problem. So temporary, got it. Please send template. I think we've got a lot of those, so I'll just delete those ones out. Great. Janelle said, if the client doesn't want salary range listed to allow for negotiation, is it best to leave it out or to describe it as attractive or competitive or something similar? Attractive or competitive doesn't really do much. I'd probably just leave it out. And the other thing is to consider is that the package itself, so a role that's going to be negotiable usually has some form of structure around it. So there'll be a base, a profit share, annual bonus, car park. There'll be something that'll come with it, maybe a mobile phone, iPad. So you might want to talk about the other components. So, but if rather than saying competitive or attractive, I know what I get paid, and you might say that it's competitive, but it's not what I'm after, or it might not be attractive to me. So it's very selective in terms of it being relevant. Okay, great. Temp. Excellent. More temp requests. Excellent. Okay, so Nicole's asked, can you please send through more great job ads that work to me as well? So we do another webinar, which is specifically around great job ads that work. And we have some examples in there that are both blue collar and white collar. And we show you how to move the dial from bad ad to good ad. So we run those every 2 months. And we've got another one coming up in August or September, I think it is. I think it's September because I just did one in July. So if you want to access that, it is on our education channel. And we have the examples on there. But if you want a copy of those ads, I can send them through also. Okay, great. Yeah, so the video ads, when I showed them on the screen, you can hover over them. So when you download this presentation later, Nicole, if you click on them, there'll be a URL link that'll take you through to YouTube to be able to play those videos. And the checklists and the handouts, everything will be sending through tomorrow, Christina, so you'll definitely get that one. Ray said another requirement is to fulfill parental or maternity leave 5 in 2 years, yep, with a small organisation. These roles have been important roles, so trying to get quality applicants for important roles, however, on a short contracted time frame is difficult. Absolutely, Ray. To be honest, I probably wouldn't expect a job ad to get the best result for me. I would try it, but it's very, very challenging. What I would typically do is I would talent search. I would know what companies that I would want to headhunt from. I would know what sort of skill sets I'm after, and I would specifically choose people who are only looking for part-time or contract work. And that way I can narrow down my field really quickly with the key candidates that I want, and I can just approach them. And I think that's going to be a better solution for you. So if you're dialing in this afternoon for the talent search one, that might be a better solution for you. And you can do it in conjunction with the job ad. So it doesn't need to cost you anything. If you do it, if you post an ad and then search off the back of it, that's the best way to do it. So it doesn't cost you anything at all. If you just want to have carte blanche access to being able to search for any talent in any location across any role type, because you want to try and build candidate relationships or talent pools and just have a bit more freedom, then you would need to pay for that service, but I'll explain both of those in the later session today. Okay, great. And yes, I'll be sending through the Q&A as well. Excellent copies of the presentation. Okay, Kate's asked, what is the best way for us to get our ads to the top of the list in the morning and weekly roundup messages that are emailed out? This is a question I get quite a lot. I guess my question is why? Like, why do you want to be at the top of the list? You only want to be at the top of the list if the candidates are relevant. So you want to be in the line sight of the most relevant talent pools is ultimately what we're trying to do. Being at the top of the list of the job mail isn't necessarily going to do that for you. Being at the top of the list of the weekly roundup, if it's not relevant to the candidate, then it's not going to be relevant to you. You will be at the top of the list for the most relevant candidates. I know that sounds a little bit like I'm trying to dodge your question, but I think we have this obsession for always wanting to be seen first, but it's not necessarily of the right candidates. So there are ways that you can buy prominence. So if you know that, yeah, but there's another 10 accounting roles and they're all very, very similar, and there might be just one tiny little thing that outpit me over somebody else, I'd buy a premium ad. That's your best way to do it, because ultimately what it does is it gives you top of the page listing for an entire week. Everyone who searches in that classification and location, your ad will show up and you completely outplay your competitors. And we know that you get, I don't know, it can be anywhere up to 10 times the number of views. You can get magnitudes of applications depending on which classification and how difficult it is to source candidates. But you sort of have to pay for that prominence. And if that's really important to you because your market is so tight with so many very, very similar roles, then you just have to buy it. So I talked to your account manager about doing that. But if it's not like that, the algorithms will work as long as you've got really good content. We'll make sure the most relevant candidates are seeing your ads. So being at the top of the list, you will be if your content's good. Let's see, that's fine. Roseanne said we have mandatory requirements for some of our vacancies. I highlight the mandatory requirements with bullet points, but we still get high level of applicants that do not hold the mandatory requirements. Yeah, well, anyone can apply to an ad, can't they? So as much as you can do, as much as you can with your job ad, and if you structure it well, if you don't have too much waffle and you limit your requirements to the things that can be measured, that's your best way of getting the most relevant candidates. The other thing too is that you've got to attract the right ones in the first place. Like with your short description, if you're too vague, if you say it's a great opportunity for fantastic candidates, join a wonderful company, we'll really look after you, everyone's going to be beating down your door. Everyone's in, I don't care what the job is, I'm coming. So you attract a lot of noise and a lot of attention, and those candidates don't want to give up on that. You've sold it to them. So they're going, oh, I don't quite have all that mandatory stuff, but I'll apply anyway because it sounds so good. You've made it sound really appetizing. What we sort of want to do is we want to hold them accountable. We want to tell them that you'll create this, you'll manage that, you'll own this, you'll deliver that, you'll execute this. So we want them to go, oh, that's a bit awkward. You're holding me accountable to something. Do I want to do that? Before they even click on your summary. Okay, so when they're just reading and they're defining out of these 20 summaries, which 3 are the most attractive to me, because that's on average, they click on 3 to move through to the body of the ad. The one that's saying, yes, we look after you, we love you, they'll click on that. When it holds them accountable, they go, I can either do that, I either want to do that, or I don't want to do that, and they move past. And the good ones click. The irrelevant ones move past and go for something softer. So maybe at the outset, tighten that up, and you might get better quality on the tail end as well. Let's see. Nashida said, I know that you have a checkbox for people who have the right to work in Australia. Even when I use this, I still have a lot of people requiring sponsorship. Yes, there is a way to stop it. We're building out technology at the moment called roles and responsibilities, and it should launch very soon. Basically, when I say very soon, I think in the next month or two. But one of the criteria that we're going to have is, because we know the checkbox is almost redundant. So one of the requirements when someone applies will be, what is your current residency status? And we'll ask them to indicate if they're an Australian resident and a Kiwi, a citizen, if they're on a 457 visa, whatever their visa type is. So we'll give them a whole range of options. And we're hoping that by doing that in the application form, that'll prompt them to have a more appropriate response. So we're going to do that and we'll see how that goes. But that might work better for you, Nishita, and that should come very soon. But so we find that when we do recruit and highlight that the position is residentially based in Kalgoorlie, Boulder, we receive a heap of irrelevant CVs and makes shortlisting very cumbersome. So I wonder why you get a bucket load because it's residentially based. Maybe because they're fly in, fly out, residentially based, or is that they're based there permanently? I have to think about that one. But if they're irrelevant candidates, if you're finding you're getting inundated by irrelevant candidates, my reaction would be to go and search for talent, because that way you can sort of nip that in the bud. You're going to take control over who you want to approach, and that might be better. So rather than just relying purely on the job ad alone, the other thing you can do is putting a screening form. So the screening form would ask them, what is it that they want to what requirements do you have? So maybe there's certain things that you need to know about them that are absolutely mandatory. I'd limit it to maybe 5 questions, make them really simple questions, multiple choice, yes and no style questions, and that way you can filter up and filter down which ones are the most relevant and park the ones that are irrelevant towards the bottom. There's going to be some little pockets where I'm guessing at the moment mining has sort of gone right through the floor. In WA, it's fallen off a cliff, and in Queensland as well, but ultimately there's a lot of supply of candidates and they're a lot more desperate than what they had been previously. And so they are starting to stretch their resumes out a bit further than their traditional little circles that they would apply to, because they need work. And so for you to be able to control that, then it's much the same as when we went through the GFC for other industries. We need to put in some screening capability so you can sort the quality from the less skilled candidates that you can use. Nicole's asked for a particular example. I'll do that for you. Jennifer, can you email details of searching potential candidates on the job boards you mentioned in Southeast Asia? Yes, I can do that. Okay, great. Yvette just wanted to know, how can we filter it down? Really difficult to filter unless you've used a screening form. Yeah, so that's fine. That's just a tail end of that question. Kate Wayne's asked, are candidates in the legal industry more likely to search by keywords or by categories? Majority will search more likely by keyword. So it's something like, is it 69% of all searches incorporate a keyword, whereas, and this is across all industries, and 51% utilize classification. And the reason is because there are a lot of sort of generic job titles, so it's easy just to type in a particular word. If you're a solicitor, that's pretty easy. You type in solicitor, maybe you do family law, maybe you do construction law. You can easily type those things in. So I would hazard a guess that they would be skewed towards that. If you didn't attend the Industry Insights one, there's an Industry Insights one-pager that you can actually download for the legal industry and see what the keywords, the top 20 keywords are that are used across the legal industry. And that will give you insight as to who is utilising keywords for that category and what type of keywords they're using. Anyone who can't attend this afternoon's session, it will be recorded. If you've said that you wanted to get it, I'll make sure we get you a copy. Rosie says, often I'll get candidates apply to my roles advertised for Sydney CBD, but I can see their job history has been all in Wollongong or Bathurst or Newcastle, and I'm always concerned they just haven't looked properly and don't actually want to work in Sydney. I don't want to waste my time. Is there a way to know if they're looking for work in Sydney or if it's a mistake? I dare say they probably selected Sydney, to be honest, because Sydney's a location that's specific, and Wollongong is specific as an area breakdown. So is Newcastle has its own area. So I believe that they would actually be wanting to search for roles in Sydney. The only other way that you could probably cross-check is that if you go into talent search, and what it does there is it tells you people who are currently residing in Sydney and those who are willing to relocate to Sydney. So you could scoop those candidates up through there. I dare say they're actually interested. Otherwise, you could whack on a screening form. Again, a screening form that would say, uh, are you currently based in, what is your current location? Based in Sydney CBD, willing to relocate to Sydney CBD. So you could put in those two things as options, and then the candidate could select. And that way it could force them to go, oh, okay, wait a second, I thought that was in my local region. It's not. I'm not going to continue with my application. It's a way that you could get around it. And you can ask several number of questions. I'd sort of limit those screening forms to 5 questions though. So Petra's asked, do applicants expect to get emails through Seek or rather through companies' Outlook? That's a good question. I probably don't know the answer to that. They trust Seek. What I do know is that the unaided brand awareness with Seek and the way that they feel about Seek is that they do feel that when they get an email from us, it is a trusted source. So even if you're using Seek, it wouldn't necessarily be an issue. I guess in terms of when they're progressing through the steps, they would expect that they would receive an email from the employer. So that way they can get your details. They just like it. Okay, I get to know your name, your phone number, your email address. I get to get all of your details. So it actually deepens the relationship with them if you can do it from your own Outlook if you're proceeding with those candidates. You've also asked, do applicants expect a reply if they have not been selected for interviews? Yes, all candidates expect a reply. They expect it within 3 days as well. Okay, they get desperate. They go, I applied for that role. They've got my details. What are they doing with them? Why haven't I heard from them? So they do expect a response. So I would always close the loop. If you don't think they're going to be suitable, get back to them. A lot of companies, what they do is they set up an email so that when the application comes through, and they may receive it via email, then it automatically kicks back a response. It's like an out of office almost, but as long as the subject line contains a certain thread and you set it up, and then it kicks back a response saying, thank you, your application's been received. We will be in contact with you within the next 3 days if you are successful. If you are unsuccessful due to a large volume of applications, we will not be in contact with you post that time. Good luck with your job hunting experience. Okay, so that sort of thing. Go to our company website if you'd like to know more information, or you can contact our HR team on this number by this date if you'd like more information. So think about how you can do that automatic response just to save you time. Sally said, you talked about specific suburbs. However, we have field roles that could be done from multiple different locations, i.e. Sydney, Brisbane, as they are home office based. How do you suggest we do this? Keyword in, based, work from home, and then just select the main location, because candidates who are looking for that will use those keywords. Work from home, they come up quite a lot in the top 20 keywords across all classifications, but salespeople will traditionally be fairly top level in their search because they'll go, well, the head office might be based in Sydney, but what my region is, I don't know. So they're a little bit more liberal with their search. So don't be too concerned. When we talk about candidates as a whole, especially in, say, the retail space, they actually look for opportunities that are within their localised area first, and then they go further afield from there to look for opportunities. Okay, great about the sessions. Trudy, we regularly target interstate regional areas. Will there be an option to group regional areas in future? No, but I'd use talent search. And the main reason for that is because candidates don't search across region. And the whole website's designed for a candidate user experience. So we want to make sure that if we're going to provide information to candidates, that they can look at it and it's granular enough for them to go, yeah, that sounds like me. It's not too broad. And so you've always got to think of it in terms of job ads being very specific and very granular. But talent search, it's different. You can go in and you can look across a whole area. So businesses like Coles and Woolworths and who was the other one? Bartercard. No, not Bartercard. Cash converters. These companies are really looking at the whole concept of talent search to say, you know what, we're always looking for cashiers or customer service people. And the fact that they could be in 20 different suburbs within a particular region, we don't want to write 20 ads. We actually just want to search for all of those candidates and then push them out to the appropriate stores. So talent search works much more effectively in that instance. So I'd definitely look at that as a solution as well. So just rethink, is advertising alone actually going to be the best solution there? More people asking for copies of things. Absolutely. Anyone who's flagged that they want a copy of something, that's fine. I'll make sure I do that for you. Ray's asked, can the video be on your own website? It has to be hosted on YouTube, Ray, because what we do is we convert it so that when you post your job ad, it renders on desktop, mobile, tablet, and the only way we can do that across multi-platform without a Flash player being a problem is to have it hosted through YouTube. So if you've got it on your website, just get the guys to give you permission to upload it to YouTube so you can get that embedded link. Okay, so that's fine. Excellent. We're down to the last 5. Let me see. Copy of information. Janelle's asked, what is the latest thinking? Read best days of the week, times of the day to advertise right now. Right now is the best time to advertise because candidates have access to your information immediately and you want speed to candidate and the best candidates. It's probably the best advice I can give you. You might advertise. A lot of people who ask that are usually in areas where there's fewer candidates. And the reality is that we have millions, it's like 30 million visits to our site every month. And we will tell you the majority of what the majority are doing. And that's not going to be helpful to you. So it's really difficult to give you best time of day because some people might come in 10 times a day off their mobile device, but they reject every single ad. Then they'll come in the next day and reject every single ad because they're not right for them. So it doesn't matter that they're coming in. It's more about how do you write the content that makes it relevant to them. And that's what's going to be key. So there's no ideal time to post your ad. And to be honest, mobile's sort of thrown that out the window because people come in earlier in the morning and on their way home from work, they also use their mobile during the middle of the day. So we're seeing people on their device for longer periods of times at really weird times. Tablet, we see tablet usage sort of kick in between 8 to 10 p.m. at night. So people are just online all the time. Your perfect candidate might be online at 3 a.m. in the morning, but they could be a minority group. So it's really about how do you write that great job ad that's actually going to give you cut through with the most relevant candidates and just get it up before anyone else does so you can have speed to candidate. That's what's going to be key for you. Okay, so Robin also asked, can you please clarify where the industry-specific keyword library is accessible? I'll make sure we send through a copy of that. So when we send through your notes, your session notes, we'll give you access to every single session that we've recorded and all of those handouts and notes where you can access them from so you guys can have them as well. Even if you didn't dial into the one in the morning or the afternoon, we'll make sure we send it through as a suite so you can pick and choose which ones you want to have. So I'll make sure I sort of tailor that a bit for tomorrow. Beautiful. That's everything. Oh, look at that, half an hour of Q&A. Fantastic. You guys have been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you found it valuable. And I'm going to close off the session now and get set up for our last one of the day, which is talent search. If you do want to register for that, just flick me a quick email and I'll shoot you over the URL address that you can use to be able to log into it. So just email me. I'm going to quickly check emails and then get them out to everyone. All right, guys, thanks for your time and good luck with your talent sourcing strategies for the remainder of the year. Thanks, guys.